Summers keep getting shorter and shorter, Randy, but yeah, you're right. We're excited to be back in Houston.
You have some opening remarks before we open it up to the media, but again, welcome to the Southland Conference Media Day.
Thanks, Randy. And you kind of mentioned a couple of things that I was going to start out with. It's a pleasure to be here for my fourth year representing Stephen F. Austin. This is my 12th Southland Conference Media Day, and certainly very excited to be back in Houston. Matter of fact, 12 years ago, this is kind of where we started this. I'd like to thank the media, the TV, print, social media, and obviously our radio media that's here today, because it's you guys and the student athletes that make this event and what it's grown into. I'd also like to acknowledge Commissioner Burnett. I'm not sure that he's in here, and his staff, but Tom has been a visionary for this conference for a long, long time, ever since obviously that I've been in the league. Certainly at Stephen F. Austin, we want to recognize his leadership and the commitment that he's had to football, to this event, and certainly to enhancing the national image of our conference. And, you know, when you start looking at a couple things like that, the national championship game in Frisco, he championed the instant replay. Really, you know, we were one of the first, if not the first, conference across the country to do that. And then obviously this event has continued to grow. So Commissioner Burnett and his staff, kudos to you guys for what you've done to help improve the national perception of the Southland Conference. Joined here, and you'll hear from two of our student athletes, both preseason all-conference players. Lamont Alexander will be a redshirt junior. Tamarick Pace, who was a freshman All-American last year, is a true sophomore. I'm sure they'll have quite a few comments. They don't speak much, but hopefully you can get Tatum a few things out of them today. As we approach the 2017 season, I am genuinely as excited and optimistic as I've been since 2014 as a football coach. We feel like we've recruited well, both at the high school level and has supplemented our roster with several transfers. You know, last season we started out kind of the way that we had hoped we would. We were 3-1. We had just beaten a nationally ranked team down in Lake Charles and McNeese, which is always a very difficult proposition to do. But as a coaching staff, we knew that we had a very fragile football team. By the sixth game, we had lost 4 offensive tackles and 4 corners and 3 receivers and starting tight end and so forth and so on. And not to belabor that point, but it certainly affected us emotionally, obviously on the field, our practices. But we turned the page this year, and we have great optimism. A lot of those guys are back. They've been rehabilitating, and they're healthier now. And, you know, obviously this is a tough league, and injuries are going to happen, but we do feel like we're in better position with our depth this year to be able to handle some of those challenges that may occur. As the season was progressing, and after the season, we evaluated some things as a program. We made some changes in a couple of different areas. Starting with myself, there was a lot of self-reflection there. We made changes on the defensive side of the football. Jeff Bird is our new defensive coordinator. Jeff comes to us from the University of Tennessee Martin, where he's had tremendous defenses the last several years in the Ohio Valley Conference, a very competitive league with Jacksonville State, Eastern Kentucky, and Eastern Illinois, and some other folks. So very excited about Jeff and some of the staff members that we've added over there. And we also evaluated and looked at some aspects of our off-season program. So we changed quite a bit in the player development aspect of what we do. And I've always been a big player development guy as a coach over my 18 years as a head football coach. And so we made some changes there, again, revamping our approach in that area. You know, my first year at SFA, we won 8 games and was an FCS playoff team. The last 2 years, we've won 9 football games. That's not good enough. We expect to do better. We anticipate every year to be a contender in this league, and certainly among the conversation for postseason play. We felt like we had that type of team last year, kind of got away from us. We certainly feel like, because of the efforts of our coaching staff and our players, that we feel like we're in better position now moving forward, coming out of off-season, spring practice in the summer, to realize some of those goals. As Randy mentioned, we do have 14 bona fide starters coming back. All of our specialists are back, so we're encouraged there. we feel like we've recruited well, both at the high school level and several transfers that have come in. Obviously, we graduated 2 senior quarterbacks, so the development at that position is going to be crucial. Hit with the injuries on the offensive line, getting healthy, staying healthy, that development's going to be very important there. 2 of our starting linebackers graduated last year. And then, of course, on the back end, we need to improve. I believe we gave up more big plays last season defensively than we did the last 2 years, twice as many as we did from my first year. So we feel like we're deeper, healthier there, and schematically, I think it's going to help us to improve, on the defensive side of the football. We're a very talented team, but we're very young. We only have 10 seniors. 10 seniors. We do have a very big junior class, big sophomore class, and obviously a big freshman class. So we're excited about where we are. We're anxious to get started. I do want to take a second, too, to acknowledge Mr. Hill, our Director of Athletics. He's been instrumental in helping us with the player development aspect. All of our players are on campus this summer, rehabilitating, going to class, taking care of their business there, training, building that chemistry in the locker room that I think is so important in our sport during the off-season months. So that's a huge commitment by our department and our administration to get that done. Very quickly, as you look forward to the 2017 schedule, we think it's a fair schedule. It's very challenging. We have obviously our annual FBS opponent, SMU, opening day. Then we play Southern Utah out of the Big Sky Conference in Nacogdoches. We're excited about that. Southern Utah is 1 year removed from the Big Sky Championship. So getting those guys in Nacogdoches is exciting as part of our off-season schedule. And then, of course, the very challenging Southland Conference schedule. We go through a stretch pretty early in the year with ACU, McNeese, SAM, and UCA, and only one of those are in Nacogdoches. So it does give us some great opportunities with our schedule, but I'm not sure that anybody in our conference has a stretch of 4 weeks quite like that with only one game on your campus. So we're going to have to mature in a hurry. We'll grow. Again, our players are ready to roll. They've been on campus all summer. They're excited. And, we look forward to starting camp on August the 2nd, and then obviously getting ready for our season opener in the Metroplex against SMU.
All right, appreciate those opening remarks from Coach Conque. If you have a question, you know the drill. Raise your hand and state your name and affiliation. Go ahead.
Coach Conque, Kevin Gore with Nacogdoches. Maybe address your quarterback situation with the Sawyer kid who you came out of spring saying he'd likely be your starter, and I understand he was in a skiing accident, boating accident. So maybe address your situation at quarterback and your idea about when he'll be able to play, and then talk about your backups.
Absolutely. What Kevin is alluding to, and appreciate the question, Foster Sawyer, highly touted young man coming out of high school, was at TCU, started maybe 3 or 4 games, played in 12 or so there, transferred, earned the starting position coming out of spring practice. A big 6'4", 5", 230-pound young man, can really throw the football. Unfortunately, over the 4th of July weekend, he had an accident. It's a non-surgical, at least at this point, situation, but it is probably going to sideline him. Best estimate, probably about 8 total weeks to 10 total weeks from the injury. So we're not even halfway into that. Certainly unfortunate situation, but you got to move on. And we're got 2 very capable young men, we feel, in Ryan Cottingham, a junior from Sunnyvale, Texas, and Jake Blumrick, redshirt sophomore from right here in Pearland, Texas. And then we signed a true freshman, Zach Smith, out of Pearland, Dawson. And obviously they've all been on campus. It's a situation where the backup was not really established in a true pecking order, so there'll probably be an open competition. The reality of it is Foster's our guy, and one or both or all 3 of these young men are going to have to step up. And the players around them, we feel like we've improved our athleticism, our length at wide receiver. The offensive line, which because of injury and other factors being young last year, we feel like that has a chance to be a strength for us. So it's the quarterback position that has to grow. It'll come from one of those 3 men early in the year. But the players around the quarterback position, running backs, receivers, tight ends, offensive line, are going to have to grow to help those quarterbacks. And it's one thing that we've really started to look at as not being quite as a quarterback dependent, more like we were a little bit in 2014, where we're able to throw for a significant number of yards, but also run the football for a significant number of yards. So we hope to get Foster back as quickly as possible. He is working very, very hard in his rehabilitation, and it's kind of up to how quickly he heals, and certainly being able to play through some discomfort.
Hey, Coach, Dan Shapiro, Beaumont Enterprise, right here.
There you go. Okay.
You've been in the league a few years, but there's a couple
few.
first-year coaches. A few. Especially Lamar with Mike Schultz. What advice would you give these first-year coaches who are especially just entering this conference for the first time?
Did you say Lamar? Yeah. Playing that game this year?
Just about what advice you'd give first-year coaches like Mike Schultz at Lamar.
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question.
I think he's talking about new coaches that enter the
Yeah,
league.
okay, yeah. Coach
if
Schultz.
I'm understanding your question right. Yeah.
I don't think this
Okay,
is
I'm
working
not sure
very
it's
well.
working, yeah.
Just what advice would you give these first-year coaches?
Well, I don't know if I need to give Coach Schultz too much advice. He's a veteran as well of this conference and FBS football. And I think he's put together, from what I can tell, an excellent staff. I do know Kevin Brown, who is on that staff. My son was at UTSA when Kevin was there, so I know he's a sharp guy. What I'm excited about is the opportunity for the first time since I've been at SFA to play Lamar. It's kind of strange that, we're 2 hours apart and we haven't played in 3 years. But Coach Schultz is going to do a tremendous job there. Again, he's very experienced, very veteran coach. Again, I think he's put together a great staff. They're in a hotbed as far as recruiting, the Golden Triangle, right there on I-10 between Houston and, New Orleans, and certainly access throughout the state of Texas. So Coach has a tremendous reputation, and I think he'll do a heck of a job at Lamar. And we're excited to have the opportunity to compete with them now, for the first time really since 2013.
Coach, you mentioned that Foster Sawyer is your guy. Does that mean the second he's ready, is he back in the lineup?
Well, I've always, I've been through this many times at other positions, quarterback position as well. I don't think you can lose your job if you're a starter. Now, with that being said, if he misses a significant amount of time early in the year and we're on a roll, you have to weigh the chemistry aspect and, those kind of values right there. Look, it's a tough break for us. Fortunately, I guess you could say, if there's a glass half full in this, is that it happened during the summer. We get a chance to work with those two more inexperienced quarterbacks, and one or both or the true freshmen will emerge. And we're anxious to get Foster back. I'm not going to kind of paint myself in a corner there. Typically, it's been my experience that you don't lose your starting position, based on the injury. Now, if he misses some extended time and we look up and we're something in zero, then, that's something that a staff will have to evaluate.
Question in the middle there.
Clint, David McCollum, Conway. During your time, describe during your tenure in the Southland Conference, what aspects this league has gotten better at, or how much tougher it is than when you first came into this league?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I spoke about the conference and the leadership of the commissioner. David, here, as I look around, there aren't many people, I guess maybe Jay Thomas, and he was at a different school as well, that were sitting in Media Day 12 years ago that are here today. So the faces have changed a little bit. But what hasn't changed is the quality of the coaching. We have outstanding coaches in this league, great motivators, great leaders, outstanding schematic coaches. I think we've seen recruiting pick up, the competitiveness in recruiting, and we've seen programs branch beyond their normal boundaries in recruiting. But David, I think the thing that I've seen is not just a consistent level of play, but a quality of play. And I think, and we've seen this on both sides of the football in my tenure, is that anybody can beat the other guy on any given day if you don't bring your A game. And because they have great players at every school, And even now our transitional schools that have finished that part and are conference eligible, they have outstanding players and outstanding coaches. And so I've seen the quality of coaching continue to be consistent and really improve, and the athletic ability of this league. The other thing, too, is the academic success of our conference. You know, we were always known as a black and blue league, but you're also seeing outstanding and exemplary academic success throughout our conference. And I think that bodes well for every institution in the league.
All right, we have time for another one or two questions before we hand it off to Tatum. Any more in the back? After start in front, we'll come in the back here.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Here again, Coach. I don't know if you guys get a lot of time during this media day to really meet the other coaches and other players, but if you do, what do you kind of take from that?
He's asking about the time at media day, getting the chance, a few minutes just to catch up with some of the coaches, and what do you get out of that?
Well, it's great. We have spring meetings in May, and obviously it's an opportunity for us to fellowship and learn, from each other and make decisions that we recommend to the conference for the betterment of our league. I think this event, and we see all the other coaches again, but I think this event is about the student athlete. Give them an opportunity to talk about their programs, for them to meet and engage other student athletes at the other institutions. And I think it's an opportunity for the media, you guys, to be able to put a name to a face. Number 80 at Stephen F. Austin's Tamarick Pace, and here's a guy that went out and caught 20 balls and 350 yards and 4 touchdowns the last 2 games of the season. So now you get to see who he is. So I think this event is great for the camaraderie between coaches, but I think this is more about the student athletes. Our spring meetings seem to be more about the coaches' fellowship.
Any more questions before we hand it off to one more quick one in the back before we hand it off to Tatum?
Newer than that, with a new defensive coordinator, a second-year offensive coordinator, and a young team. What realistically, in your mind, has to be accomplished this year for you to feel that the trajectory of this program from a wins and loss standpoint is still headed up?
Isaac, nothing changes. Our expectations are high. We want to impact and be in the conversation, a contender for this conference race each and every year, regardless of who's coaching or who's playing. And then we want to be in the conversation for postseason aspirations as well. So, look, I hired excellent coaches. They're professionals. They're teachers. They're leaders. We made some moves within the staff. Schematically, we've done some things. Our players, I think they'll tell you they've embraced some of these changes. I think I think they'll tell you this too, I think the most significant changes we've made is our approach to our player development program in the offseason. It's much more mentally demanding, much more discipline-oriented. And, and every year you make changes. Some are greater than others, more subtle than others. But as long as I'm the head coach at Stephen F. Austin and the other places that I've been, the expectations are not going to change. Now, obviously, we got to blow with the quarterback, but, we expect to put a quality player on the field and go compete. And I think that's the name of the game, is that you go compete. And you always keep your expectations and your goals high. And I don't think this year is any different. Just have a few new faces doing it.
To you guys, Randy, Coach, back to you.
All right, Tatum, appreciate that. And just following up on, they were talking about, she was asking them about the rivalry games. As a coach, what's it like going through a rivalry game and a rivalry week? You and I have talked about the Battle of the Piney Woods, working that at NRG Stadium, but it doesn't stop there. As a coach, what does it all mean?
Well, you try to keep the preparation as normal as possible, and some of the outside distractions, you try to insulate your young men from that. It's because it's easy to get caught up. You're talking about playing Northwestern State for Chief Caddo right across the river. A lot of these guys played against each other in high school, and of course down at NRG against Sam Houston. They may have been on the same team, So you try to keep the young men focused, insulated on the task at hand. Sometimes that's a challenge. Obviously, like Tamarick said, we didn't play as well as we were capable of in the game down here in Houston. But certainly, excited that we were able to get the Chief back in Nacogdoches where he belongs.
What do you take away from what you're able to accomplish in spring ball with some new faces? As you mentioned, some of the new staffing. That's the time you implement things and the chemistry starts to build in football. You got to have.
Well, I think starting on the defensive side of the football, it was an opportunity for Coach Bird and his new staff to implement schematically the things that we want to do, the calls, just the terminology, so our players could hit the ground running this summer, and I think we accomplished that. We were slow with our installation on that side of the football. We've obviously accelerated that, and I think the young men have grasped to that. Offensively, this is our second year under Gary Croton on the offensive side of the football. We were able to add a couple of pieces at mid-year. At wide receiver, 2 FBS transfers, one from Texas A&M and North Texas, an offensive tackle, which was an area we were depleted last year, and I think all of those young men made an impact. And then, of course, just another year with guys like Tamrick to grow, Foster Sawyer to establish himself and learn our system, even though very similar to TCU in some ways, the terminology was different. Came out pretty healthy. We had held about 9 or 10 guys that were rehabilitating off-season surgery, so it allowed our redshirt freshmen and our younger players the depth to really get a lot of reps. So thought it was very productive.
I want to ask you real quick, first of all, about the running game. You had Zach, you had, who am I missing? Easley and Joshua West. You got to replace that kind of talent, and that's part of being football. You got to have guys prepared, ready to step up some of these young guys, but that is a lot of yards. When you add it up, that's a lot of production.
Well, what's scary is you look, we lost, 98% or so, or 99% of our passing offense and probably about 80% of our rushing offense. But that's why young people come to play. And we've got redshirt freshmen and sophomores and true freshmen in some places. They're going to have tremendous opportunities. And again, we feel like we want to get back to an identity more of what we had in 2014. Become just a little bit less quarterback dependent, but take advantage of when those opportunities come. But when one door closes, another one opens, and graduation is part of what we do, but recruiting. We're excited about the talent we have on campus, and we're looking forward to get started.
I want to close before I let you go. Zach now trying to take that next step in the NFL right here in Houston with the Texans. I know it was a thrill for you, the chance to coach him in college, and you're keeping an eye as he goes to training camp with the Texans next week in West Virginia. They're looking at him in a couple of different positions, but how proud are you of him getting this opportunity?
Well, very proud.
Or any player for that matter.
Yeah, very proud. Certainly good for our family, good for him, and it's a great reflection of Stephen F. Austin. I think it's good for the conference. And you're going to be up in West Virginia next week.
That's right, next week.
You'll be able to tell me how he's doing better than he will, but I had dinner with him last night. He's really embraced this challenge, particularly some different things they're asking him to do. He's a wonderful young man, a marvelous athlete, and he'll give it his best. I have no question.
All right. Well, listen, best of luck this season. Camp will open. The season will begin at SMU, correct? And hopefully big season ahead for the Lumberjacks. Head coach Clint Conque. Appreciate it, man. Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a break here on the 2017 Southland Conference Football Media Day. We continue live coverage here on ESPN3. Straight ahead, we're going to check in with the McNeese Cowboys, find out what's happening in Lake Charles when we come back.